Oh, all right, I've had enough. Clapping for herself. That last part was on brand.
Imagine working for months on your big comeback.
Why would you do that? That's not necessary.
And the only thing people remember is that you had yourself announced like a royal in someone's living room.
That in their cover feature, they actually screw you over in such dramatic fashion that you may end up being stripped of your royal title.
That's exactly what just happened to Meghan Markle. Her Harper's Bazaar cover story was supposed to reset everything. New photos, new angle, new era. The kind of glossy profile that says, I'm still here, I'm still important, I'm still winning.
It is really hard with her and her, I would say, lack of brand clarity.
Instead, it turned into one of the most mocked, picked-apart interviews of her entire post-royal life.
It sounds fake.
The shoot itself was already strange. The pictures showed Meghan in heavy, dramatic poses, sitting on the floor, hugging herself, staring blankly at the camera, wrapped in big coats like a character in a moody indie film. The mood wasn't warm or powerful, it looked tense, it looked overthought, it looked like someone trying very hard to project depth, and not quite getting there. But the real problem wasn't the photos, it was the story wrapped around them.
It makes you sound like really kind of into yourself in a way.
The writer described Meghan in almost royal terms. The language was soft, poetic, dramatic, as if they were writing about a head of state, not a former actress at lunch in New York. Every move sounded like a symbol. Every quote sounded like a statement. It felt more like a movie script than a real conversation. Then came the line that blew everything up.
It's her, trying to look glamorous and dewy. The big eyes, the hand on her chin, the slow head turn. Oh, on the couch, on the settee, with the silk dress, staring into the camera like an ingenue, like an innocent.
Halfway through the piece, the writer casually mentions that Meghan arrives at a friend's townhouse in New York. It's a normal home. Not a palace, not a gala, not a state banquet. And yet, as she walks in, the house manager announces her out loud as Meghan, Duchess of Sussex. There are only a couple of other people in the house. No audience, no cameras, just an almost empty room, and a royal-style introduction. That sentence changed the entire way people read the interview. Suddenly, the moody photos and the dramatic writing weren't just odd. They became proof to many readers that Meghan still sees herself as a royal figure first and a regular person second. She stepped down from royal duties. She said she wanted privacy. She moved to California to live freely. And yet here she is in a private American home, still using a foreign title like she's about to walk into Windsor Castle. Online, that tiny detail spread faster than any quote about empowerment or finding her voice. People weren't talking about the causes she mentioned or the projects she teased. They were asking one simple question. Who gets announced like that? In someone's living room? The Harper's Bazaar team probably thought they'd helped Meghan look thoughtful, glamorous, and strong. Instead, they'd accidentally shown the world just how tightly she's still holding on to the role she says she left behind. And that was before Candace Owens saw it, before one blunt reaction turned an awkward feature into what many now call Meghan's most embarrassing media moment yet.
I'm sorry, but, and genuinely, I don't even mean to attack her. There was something frustrating about her, and I think he hits.
When Candace Owens read that, Harper's Bazaar piece, she didn't treat it like a soft celebrity feature. She treated it like a case study in everything she thinks is wrong with Meghan Markle. On her show, Candace did what she always does. She cut straight to the most embarrassing detail and ripped it apart. That living room announcement, Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, became her main weapon. She held it up like proof that Meghan is still playing royal dress-up long after walking away from royal duty. Candace's point was simple. If you say you escaped the palace to live a normal life, why are you being announced like a duchess inside someone's house in New York? No red carpet, no state dinner, no official event, just a friend's townhouse with a couple of guests. And yet, the introduction sounded like something from Buckingham Palace. To Candace, that wasn't just cringe. It was the clearest sign that Meghan isn't willing to let go of the title that made her famous. Candace also dragged the tone of the interview itself, the dramatic photos, the poetic writing, the heavy language. She said it all felt like a pity project. Meghan, once again, was painted as the misunderstood heroine, the woman who hurts more deeply than everyone else, the woman who is always on a journey of healing, always battling unseen forces. Candace's audience knows her style. She doesn't do gentle, she doesn't tiptoe. She called the whole thing out as self-indulgent and out of touch.
You're trying to hang out with, and you're hanging out with the Kardashians, or hanging out with people who have like sex tapes and show their vaginas on camera. You could be British royalty right now.
In a world where most people are worried about rent, bills, and basic life problems, hearing a millionaire duchess talk about how hard it is to be misunderstood in designer coats doesn't land the way Meghan probably hoped. But the part that really stung was Candace's focus on consistency. Meghan has said again and again that she left royal life to be free, to speak, to live without the pressure of titles and protocol, yet every time she steps into the spotlight, the title is front and center. Duchess of Sussex on magazine covers, Duchess of Sussex in podcasts, Duchess of Sussex announced in a living room. Candace put it like this: you can't play the victim of the monarchy while still cashing in on the royal brand. And a lot of people agreed with her. Clips of her reaction spread quickly, comment sections filled with people saying they had rolled their eyes at that same Harper's Bazaar line. Others admitted they hadn't even noticed the detail until Candace highlighted it, and now they couldn't unsee it. The whole interview started to look different, less like a comeback, and more like another example of Meghan wanting to control how she's seen, without accepting how she actually comes across. What Meghan needed from that magazine spread was a reset, a chance to look mature, grounded, and self-aware. What she got instead was a viral moment where critics like Candace could say, "See, nothing has changed, she still doesn't get it." And once that idea took hold, the conversation moved from one awkward article to something much bigger.
She insists on being called or introduced to an empty room as Duchess of Sussex.
The question of whether Meghan's entire public image is built on a story that no longer matches how she really behaves. Once Candace's reaction dropped, the whole thing went from awkward interview to full-blown mess. People didn't just disagree with Meghan, they laughed at the whole setup. Comment after comment asked the same thing. Who gets announced in a private house? Why is she acting like she's still in the monarchy? That one tiny detail, the Duchess announcement in a New York living room, became the symbol of the entire disaster. It didn't matter how carefully the quotes were polished. It didn't matter how dramatic the photos looked. For a lot of viewers, that line told them everything they needed to know. Meghan left the royal family, but she never left the royal role. And then the comparisons started. Right as this Harper's Bazaar piece was supposed to be Meghan's big I'm back moment, Catherine, Princess of Wales, was out doing normal royal events. No soft focus lighting, no announce my title theatrics, just calm, polished, smiling, talking to people, clearly relaxed. Side by side on social media, the gap looked brutal. On one side, Catherine, looking natural and happy. On the other, Meghan, in heavy poses, serious face, being introduced like royalty in a stranger's lounge.
Meghan Markle sold her soul to the devil to get a cover not on Vogue, which is the one that she wanted, but on Harper's Bazaar. Oh, bizarre.
People said it out loud. One looked real, the other looked like a performance. The criticism got sharper. Viewers called the interview childish and self-absorbed, like it was written for a fantasy version of Meghan, not the real person. The photos, instead of appearing powerful, were slammed as cold, stiff, and try hard. Even in the US, where most people don't care about royal protocol at all, the title obsession landed badly. Duchess of Sussex? In a living room? People joked. Why is she still using a title from a country she left? That's the part Candace hammered over and over. For years, Meghan has said she wanted privacy and freedom from the crown. But here she was, in America, on American soil, still wrapped in that foreign title, like a costume she refuses to take off. Candace argued that it didn't look like confidence. It looked like someone desperate not to go back to being just Meghan Markle, ex-actress. The deeper problem, she said, was brand confusion. Meghan talks like a global leader, a game changer, a historic figure, but when people look for solid achievements that match that level of self-importance, they don't see much beyond interviews, drama, and photo shoots. The story she tells about herself and the reality people experience just don't line up. Critics online started using a simple phrase, "This wasn't a PR stumble, it was a faceplant." The mask slipped. The carefully crafted image cracked. Underneath the poetic captions and Duchess branding, people thought they saw something. Else, insecurity dressed up as empowerment, ego dressed up as authenticity. And that's where Candace's words really cut.
It's like she's playing a human being, like it's a performance.
She said trust in a public figure works like this. It's built in drops and lost in buckets. And for Meghan, this interview felt like one of those bucket moments. After so many carefully staged projects, this was the one that made casual viewers step back and say, hang on, I don't buy this anymore. From there, the story stopped being about one Harper's Bazaar article. It became a bigger question, whispered all over social media and talk shows. If Meghan can't see how strange this looks, if she can't read the room even now, what does that say about where her entire brand is heading? The fallout from that interview didn't just live online. It spilled into how people talk about Meghan as a brand. Candace made one point that stuck with a lot of viewers. Meghan keeps telling the same story. Every project, every podcast, every glossy profile circles back to the same themes: pain, misunderstanding, victimhood, finding her voice, being silenced, and then finally speaking. At first, people listened. It was new. It was emotional. It felt bold to hear someone take on an ancient royal system. But by the time this Harper's Bazaar piece came out, a lot of casual fans were tired. They weren't hearing anything fresh, just the same story dressed up in new outfits and new lighting. Candace said it bluntly: if every interview is about how hurt you are, eventually people stop seeing you as strong and start seeing you as stuck. And that matters in Hollywood. Producers, studios, and networks want stars who bring attention, yes, but they also want stars who feel current, fresh, watchable. If every time your name trends, it's because of drama, confusion, or another disaster interview, you stop being exciting and start being exhausting. The Harper's Bazaar piece was meant to show Meghan as reflective and powerful. Instead, it made critics say, she's still talking about the same things. Where's the growth? Where's the work? They looked at the Duchess title, the moody photos, the long speeches about how hard it is to be her, and they didn't see evolution. They saw repetition. Candace also hit on another uncomfortable point. Meghan's audience is shrinking. At the beginning, she had 3 big groups on her side: royal watchers who were excited for something new, Americans who loved the idea of our girl in the palace, and people who connected with her story about racism and mental health. Over time, though, each of those groups has split. Some stayed loyal, but others quietly drifted away. Not because they suddenly loved the monarchy, but because they felt Meghan kept reliving the same chapter without moving the story forward. This interview, with its grand title announcement and heavy self-focus, made that drift worse. It didn't invite new people in. It reminded old supporters of everything her critics say, that she's more interested in being seen as a historic figure than in actually doing historic work. And for Harry, there's another layer. When Meghan stumbles in public, he pays the price too. The Duchess announcement doesn't just make her look attached to the title, it drags him back into the royal drama he says he wanted to escape. Every time she leans into Duchess of Sussex, people are reminded that he is still a prince, still tied to the crown he spends so much time attacking. Candace's takedown turned this into a simple picture. 2 people who walked away from the monarchy but can't stop dressing like they're still on the balcony. Whether that's fair or not, that's how it landed. And that's why this Harper's Bazaar interview matters so much. It wasn't just a bad article, it was a moment when the gap between Meghan's words and Meghan's actions got so obvious that even people who don't follow royal drama closely could see it and laugh at it. From there, the question isn't just, why did this interview go wrong? It becomes, what happens to Meghan's whole future brand if she keeps getting it this wrong? So what does all of this mean for Meghan Markle going forward? Because this wasn't just a bad magazine moment, it was a warning. The Harper's Bazaar interview showed something Meghan probably didn't intend to reveal. She still thinks like a duchess in a world that has moved on. That tiny line, Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, echoed louder than any of her carefully chosen quotes. People didn't walk away thinking, wow, what a powerful woman. They walked away thinking, she really made someone announce her like that? In a house? Candace Owens didn't create that feeling. She just put it into words. She held up the interview like a mirror and said, this is how you look to everyone else. Not as a brave survivor, not as a modern leader, but as someone still clinging to a title and a victim story because there isn't much else holding the brand together. That's the real humiliation. It's not that Candace mocked her. It's that the mocking rang true for people who were already starting to doubt. The Duchess announcement didn't feel like a one-off mistake. It felt like the logical endpoint of years of over-the-top PR, grand speeches, and a never-ending woe is me narrative from one of the most privileged couples on earth. If Meghan wants to recover from this, something has to change. She can't keep doing the same interview in different magazines. She can't keep posing in dramatic coats and talking about being silenced while her name is on every cover, every podcast, every streaming special. She can't keep leaning on the Duchess title while insisting she's free from the monarchy. That circle doesn't square anymore. People see the gap. They feel the hypocrisy. What would actually work? Real results, real change in tone. Imagine if one day, instead of another glossy profile full of heavy quotes, Meghan did a low-key, stripped-back piece. No Duchess announcement, no dramatic staging, just simple answers, concrete projects, clear achievements. Imagine if she let the work speak louder than the pain for once. That, ironically, is what Candace was pointing to under all the sarcasm. You can't build a whole life on being the main character in your own trauma story. At some point, you have to step out of the spotlight you created and prove you're more than the title printed under your name. Right now, though, Meghan seems stuck. Every time she tries to take control of the narrative, she tightens it around herself like a rope. Every time she reaches for dignity and power, she ends up with another meme, another eye roll, another clip of someone like Candace tearing her apart, and millions quietly nodding along. The Harper's Bazaar interview could have been a reset. Instead, it became a turning point, a moment when a lot of people stopped giving her the benefit of the doubt. And after this, every time Meghan walks into a room, every time someone introduces her with that Duchess title, people will remember that living room scene. They'll remember the laughter. They'll remember the dragging. Not Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, but Meghan, the woman who wanted so badly to be treated like royalty that she forgot how normal people actually see her now.